Welcome today for our coaching. Today, we're going to talk about finding access on mission. In this series, we've been talking about looking at topics related to being on mission and on his mission with him. And the first week, we talked about approaching your work and your community as if you were a missionary that God sent to your community. And that was very helpful for us to see our area, our city with fresh eyes. So we did that a couple of weeks ago. And then last week, we talked about going where he sends you, where he thrusts you out and following him in where he's sending you. And then today, I've asked several people that are going to be sharing about how they're finding access into groups of people to search for persons of peace. And remember that we talked about that even though you live in your city and you may be like me and be from your city, in many ways, you're actually an outsider to the people that you're targeting, the people that you're wanting to reach. It's easy to assume that because we live here, we're insiders, but to this community, a lot of the communities of lost people in our cities, we're actually outsiders to those communities. And so access ministry is a way that it's really when we serve people in a way that opens doors for us to have spiritual conversations with them. So it simply is just ministry that gives us access. And good access ministry does at least two things. Number one, good access ministry gets you in close proximity to lost people. And for some of us, that can be challenging, but good access ministry will get you in close proximity to lost people. And then another thing that I found that it does very well is that it creates a sense of trust with them that you normally wouldn't have. It helps create a sense of trust so that they'll listen to you or won't be as suspicious as they would be. Or at least it gives you a reason to talk to them. It gives you like a reason for, why are you talking to me? Well, this is why. It gives you a reason. And then if it's really good access ministry, it allows you the opportunity to make multiple contacts with the same people over and over so that you can, talk to them over a period of time that maybe starts in some kind of a level of conversation that eventually will lead to a spiritual conversation. So really good access ministry does that. So I've asked several people to share, and the first person that's going to be sharing is Tim Klaassen, because Tim is doing access ministry, and he has a good access ministry that allows him multiple contacts with the same people, and he's doing that through a food depot. So Tim, are you ready to share?
I'm ready to go.
All right.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Suzie. I've really been appreciating this series. We started this food depot with the hope that it would become an access ministry. What we didn't realize is that people, because they just come in and pick up a bag, they didn't stick around for very long. It's taken quite a while for those people to become comfortable with our volunteers. So we have had one or two opportunities to pray with people, but what we started to do was pray specifically for people that we could, as a church, purchase some food bags for, and then take them to their home rather than having them come to us. And that has been the most fruitful thing that we've had. One of the families, the youth have really engaged with our youth ministry, and we've sent them to summer camps. But the parents, the mom, she knows that she needs the Lord, but she's not ready. She's still stuck in some of her past stuff. But we've really engaged well with one family, and we're now involved in 3 generations of that family. With the youngest, he's about 22 years old, kind of dripping out some Discovery Bible study with him. And then with the grandma, been able to visit her at the hospital several times. And then myself and one of the ladies we've been training in disciple making is going with me to the grandma's place tomorrow. And I don't think that'll be a DBS yet, but it's access into her home. And we hope to be able to pray for her and even share a Jesus story with her. With the mom, the middle generation, she lives in a 4-plex. So her and then the single mom upstairs, they both receive a food box. And 2 weeks ago, we started a DBS with them. So another lady that we're training in disciple making and I have started that. And both of these women really understand that they need the Lord. The cool thing is, we've been walking with these families for almost 2 years now. And sharing sharing stories, praying with them, having them over for meals, things like that. And so it's taken a long while to get to the actually doing a Discovery Bible study, but that's starting to happen now. So the kind of the snowball hopefully is happening there. The youngest son is a commercial fisherman. He's heading off to Alaska for two months, and so I'm hoping to share Jesus fishing stories with him. We've been doing that a little bit already, and he's a little bit open. His openness is going up and down, probably depending on what's going on in his heart. So please pray for us as we continue to reach out. I found a couple other disciple-making catalyzers in our city here in Nanaimo, BC, on Vancouver Island, and we've been meeting together monthly, the small group of us, and then weekly, one other guy and myself, we go out in the hospital district here in our city, and there's a group of people who aren't allowed to smoke in their apartment complex or on the ground, so they go across the street, and literally they'll go in between two parked cars where they've got 2 feet, set up their little chairs and do their pot smoking and whatever else they're doing. But we've met with them several times. They welcome us into their little oikos there, and we've prayed with them. We've shared stories of Christ, and I think we're getting to the place where we can. Our prayer is that we'll start a Discovery Bible study in that building, and that will turn into a home church. The group of guys that I'm partnering with here, their vision is for a church on every street in our city. So that's about 867 streets and counting. So that's their desire to see. They are a network of house churches, and they train up their people and start new groups. So those two things have been super exciting for us.
Well, thank you, Tim, for sharing. Yeah, the looking at what you're doing is, and notice what he said, it's taken 2 years of doing this. Sometimes it takes a while, but it can pay rich dividends when it starts paying off. So also one of the things I wanted to stress with this whole concept of access ministries, when we started it, I thought, oh my goodness, now we're going to have to do all these new ministries, and it just felt burdensome. But along the way, I've realized that many of our existing community ministries, like if you have a legacy church and you're already doing something, community outreach in some way, those can often easily be used for access. In fact, one thing I've learned is often what people call ministry is actually just access ministry, that they never take advantage of the access. The actual ministry part goes undone because they're serving people, but they never get around to actually making disciples who make disciples because they don't have time. They're so busy doing the other part of the work. But if you look at those of you particularly who are involved in a legacy church, that church probably already has something that you can use for access if you just apply the principles of DMM. And that's what Conrad is doing, and Bob Niemand is helping him, but Conrad is going to share with us what he's doing with Good Sam. Conrad?
Hey guys. So I took over as the director for the food ministry here at the church I work at, and it's called Good Samaritan, and it's been around for, I think, almost 40 years. So it's well established in the community. Although it seemed like they kept their footprint just very small. And really the direction of the church leadership before me really just focused on the members and the frequent attenders. And so when I took over the ministry, I changed all of that. I felt like the Holy Spirit almost convicting me. Well, to be honest, it was more like a gentle but loving, like slap in the face. Like, hey, how can we call ourselves a ministry if we only serve those who already have a relationship with Christ? So I opened up the doors to anyone in the community that needed food assistance. And that was just a huge game changer. Since COVID, we've almost doubled the number of families that we serve on a monthly basis. We serve over 450 families from the parking lot at our facility. And I've also invited over 20 different local agencies and churches and ministries around the community to pick up bulk food items on Wednesdays, so they can take those food items back to their organizations. And so overall, we bless over 450 individuals every month, which is just huge. It's just so awesome to see. And there's just so many opportunities to share the love of Christ with people. So transition to my DMM journey, which began about 9 months ago. I met Bob, and Bob took me through, along with Brent and Brad, through the 8-week DMM sessions. And then I got this random text from Bob, and it said, "Let me know if you would like to learn how to leverage your access ministry." And I was like, I wonder how much money this guy wants to share with me all of his insights. So obviously that wasn't his intent. So when we finally got to meet in person, Bob shared with me his thoughts on trying to incorporate DBS with the clients that are waiting for food in our parking lot. So we tried it, and we saw some immediate success, but nothing really happened past that initial point of conversation. The follow-up that I had was just empty. There wasn't really anything past that initial stage. So reflecting back on that, I kind of felt like we were almost doing more harm than good, or almost like tricking them like into like doing a DBS or forcing them into doing this. And the more I thought about them as a person, me in their shoes, I was almost like, wow, if I don't say yes to these things, are they going to not give me food? Or if I don't sit through this whole Bible study thing, man, am I going to not be able to pick up food at a later date? And so obviously we needed a different approach. And so then came the opportunity to join most of you guys in San Diego. And so while driving around in San Diego with Suzie and her husband, Matt, I just shared with them how my desire was to be more effective in incorporating DMM within Good Sam. So after our morning prayer walking session, Bob joined our group and went out with Suzie. And so as they were walking door to door, conversation came up with Good Sam, and Suzie felt that the Holy Spirit was leading her to share some thoughts with Bob. So on the plane ride home, Bob and I kind of talked through some of these ideas and set up a time with Suzie to FaceTime and collaborate on these ideas and thoughts. Out of that meeting, we kind of came up with a game plan. So it started out with me just taking the list of clients that had visited Good Sam from the previous week and praying over those people and allowing the Holy Spirit to kind of guide me to those names of people that I could go out and I could meet them at their homes. My goal was to come up with 10 names, which I did. And so last Friday, for the first time, we actually drove out in our city of Modesto and ended up visiting with 3 clients. The first visit led us to a retirement community where Bob and I met Jean, an 80-year-old widow who is just in a horrible, dire situation financially and is now beginning to experience the beginning stages of dementia. She has no family that lives close by that can help her out with any of her medical or financial situations. And so I took this very personally, and I've been out to see her multiple times and talked with her on the phone multiple times since Friday. I've brought her food that she can actually eat and safely prepare. I've purchased personal hygiene items for her, and I'm now in the process of trying to connect her with someone that can help her through her finances and her medical situations. But that meeting on Friday has just been my top priority going into this week. So the second visit was actually a friend of Jean's, and his name was Wendell. So Wendell had brought Jean to Good Sam for the first time. And in talking with him, I was just blown away at his willingness to step up and help those in need. Come to find out, he had actually been taking care of some of Jean's needs when she needed a ride to the doctor's office or food. With a little bit of money he had, he was helping her out. So he just screamed possible person of peace to me. And so when we stopped by his apartment, though, he was actually unable to really meet with us because he had been dealing with a death in the family. And but before we left, though, he's like, you need to call me back. You need to come and sit down with me because I want to know why you guys are coming out and following up with me. Like, I want to know why. So since then, I've been communicating with him through text. And if he's not at a funeral this Friday, the plan is to meet up with him and hopefully complete a DVS with him in his house. So the third house we followed up was with Heather. When we knocked on her door, this man opened the door up and we were like, hey, is Heather home? And he's like, who are you guys? And I was like, oh, we're with Good Samaritan Ministry. And he's like, oh, let me go get her. So when she came to the door, she looked like she had just been crying. and she was shaking a little bit, wasn't very receptive to us at first, sharing a Bible story or even opening us up on why she needed prayer. But when I mentioned to her that I'd been praying over all the people that had visited Good Sam last week, and that the Holy Spirit led me to her name, which led me to her door, which led us to knock on her door, you could just see everything about her change. She was so much more open with sharing. She was open to us praying for her. She was open with us sharing the story of the prodigal son and talking through that whole story. And even though she didn't have time to go anything further, I've actually been texting her back and forth. And so there's continued conversation after that visit. So some of the takeaways that I had just starting off is a few things. For one, to quote Suzie, we're sitting on a gold mine of possible persons of peace. 4,500 people in this city are some way connected to Good Sam. The other thing is that prayer before and during the visits is just so important. Forming a prayer team, which I was able to do last week with about 5 volunteers and staff members here at the church, not just for the names of people that we're going to go and visit, but also when we were out there talking with the people in the community. It's just absolutely vital. And then using phrases like, we are here to just do a follow-up visit on your experience with Good Sam, and we would like you to ask you a few questions. It literally opens doors. The familiarity with Good Sam just puts them at ease, and you can like see a physical change in their body language. And it's also what I've already seen is it's a great opportunity to start introducing DMM and Cast Vision to the volunteers that I have, and even possibly other church staff members by going out with me, hopefully on future follow-up visits. And so the other thing too is just don't be afraid to be willing to change up your approach. The game plan that you initially start off with is usually not the one that you're going to end up with at the end. And so even after one day, I've already noticed just some little phrasings and verbiage that I can change or tweak to kind of help clarify why we're there to visit, hopefully kind of put them even more at ease. And then also just don't be afraid to ask for help. I found that the group that we have here on this call has so much more experience than I could have ever imagined. So use it. And that's what I have.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, Conrad. He's only been doing this 9 months. That was awesome. Yeah, when I heard about when we were in San Diego and heard about what Conrad had and how he and Bob with Good Sam and the food bank and what they were doing, that was the first thought I had is, are you kidding me? This is a gold mine. There could be persons of peace come in there. But I love how you were willing to shift your approach and how that made a big difference. And you heard the part where he said he knocked on the door and the guy said, and he asked for the woman and the guy said, well, who are you? And like all suspicious. And then he said, well, we're here with Good Samaritan, and he's like, oh, okay, well, come in. That's what I've seen is just that trust that it literally opens the door for you to, and you're welcome, that you can step through that welcome part of Woolley pretty easily with a good access ministry. I wanted to share a minute that here in Augusta, we've been partnering with other ministries in our city and offering to do the follow-up or the disciple-making part, which often is what they intended to do. They intended to make disciples or at least lead people to the Lord when they started the ministry, but they've been so busy with the ministry, they never got around or never had the wherewithal to actually make disciples or even bring people to a decision for Christ. So they're just handing out food, which is great, or doing other things. But one of the ministries that we've been working with is a ministry called Released Time Bible Education. They are in 35 states. So surely somebody here has that in their city. So I encourage you to maybe look, because we started serving them with volunteers from our church and gained the Release Time people's trust in us, and then got to know the director, and just through conversations with her, I offered to start visiting the students' homes. So it's a program where students go to, from a local elementary school, come across the street to our facility 1 hour a week. And so they have all these kids that are involved in it, hundreds of kids. And so from 6 different schools in our area. So we offered just to follow up with the families and see, what we could do to help the families. And so anyway, she just opened up the database, sent me all the information, sent our people here all the information in their database. And so we set up teams, and we just contact the parents either by visiting or by telephone. And we thank them for letting their kid come to that program. So we're representing that program. We offer prayer. We say, hey, we love to pray for our families. How can we pray for you? And then we say, hey, we have a tool that will enable you and your family to read the Bible together. I know you wanted to send your child to a program where they could read their Bible there, and then we talk about being spiritual leaders from your family, something we got from actually Rachel Britz put that together, Jim's wife. And so anyway, we've just been using that, and we just offer this tool to them. Well, anyway, we had gone about this different ways, but what we have found is that at least 75% of the families that we call or visit say yes, they want to do it. So from there, we set up a discovery study with the parents. We may do it right then. Oftentimes we schedule another time and come back. The families clean up their houses, they meet with us. But the whole purpose for us doing this is just to sift and look for who may be a person of peace. So we do a number of discovery studies every week with people across our community, just looking for persons of peace, following up. A lot of different things have happened. People have come to Christ. But anyway, we just have found that to be outstanding access ministry. But then when we were in San Diego, I heard Rebecca Davis talking about something that they're doing that's very similar, but they're doing it with internationals. And so I asked Rebecca to share today what they're doing. Rebecca?
Thanks, Susie, for the opportunity to share today about Furniture Friends. And I learned about Furniture Friends actually through the 2414 map, which Chris had put out back around sometime around Christmas. And so I had provided my information for that and was contacted a few weeks later by someone in our area who is connected to Furniture Friends. And so that's how my husband and I found out about this ministry. And we were so excited. It seems like a wonderful access ministry. We've been connected with Furniture Friends now since probably February or March is when we started. But what it is we live in Arkansas. We live close to the University of Arkansas. And Furniture Friends provides furniture free of charge to international students at the University of Arkansas. And then it's on loan to them for however long that they're here at the university. And then Furniture Friends has a huge warehouse, and that's where they store all of the furniture. So people in the community that are getting rid of their furniture, they donate it to Furniture Friends, and now they've got this tremendous warehouse, and it's full of every kind of furniture you can imagine. So at the beginning of the school year, Furniture Friends will go and deliver the furniture that's needed to the international students. There are about 400 to 500 families that are involved in the program, and they're from countries all over the world. But it's a wonderful access ministry because it gives us a chance to go follow up with the students after they've received the furniture. So we've gone, and it's been so interesting, kind of like Conrad was saying, I could relate to what he was saying. We'll knock on the door, and for example, a few weeks ago, there was a student named Saad. He's from Bangladesh. He opened the door probably this much, and he peeks out and he says, who are you all? And as soon as we said we're from Furniture Friends, he opened the door wide and he said, come on in, and he wanted to share some food with us. So he invited us to sit down. We shared some food with him, and we stayed for over an hour talking with him. And over the course of that conversation, he expressed that he would like a larger desk. So we were able to go back, bring him another desk another time. He said, I can't believe this. I can't believe you would do this. This is just too good to be true. We shared the story of the Good Samaritan with him. That was something that was really interesting to him. And in fact, he took a picture of the desk, sent it to us last weekend, and he said, thank you again. This is wonderful. I'd love to connect with you all again. So we're going to be going to a local park this weekend with him, and then he's going to bring some of his friends. Another student named Farah is from Tunisia. She invited us in. So excited. As soon as we said we're from Furniture Friends, we just want to check on you and see how you're doing, see if there's anything we can help with. She invited us in. We stayed for over an hour. I got a message from her on WhatsApp shortly after we left, and she wanted to meet for a meal sometime. So it's just, we have been welcomed into so many homes, and it has just been a fantastic access ministry, and students are so excited to see that people care about them and that they want to help them. And they're just blown away by somebody would actually give us furniture like this. But it's a great way for people to donate their used furniture that they're not using anymore. And so it's been a fabulous access so far for us.
I love it, Rebecca. I love that you're meeting internationals that way. It's awesome. And it's so simple. I just remember when you first said it, I'm like, this is so simple. And that is the thing to remember about Access Ministry, is that it can be very simple. And it doesn't have to be some complicated thing. It doesn't even have to be as complicated as what we've talked about so far, because Jordon Baker and his team have come up with something that anyone on this call can do. Any of us can do. And I bet there's 1,000 things that would fall into this, a very similar category, that are very simple access ministries. You just have to think about it. You have to pray about it, be strategic, and consider what is it that would open a door. And so I've asked Jordon if he would share. Can't wait to hear this. Go ahead.
Yeah, as Suzie shared, our access ministry that we've been doing weekly now for about 1.5 years is very, very, very simple. When we first went through our 8-week DMM training and then did it so we have a DMM house church here. And so we were transitioning as a church at that time. So we did our training and then passed it on to others. And so we were going out prayer walking 2 by 2. We would ask people to pray with them. We would look to share Bible studies. And there was just always a closed door. We were maybe here and there, people would say yes, but just not very many people open to receiving prayer. I think part of it is my area is heavily churched, but there's a lot of lost people, and the Pipsy area, even that I live in and much of our team lives in, is a very project. People come in and try to do projects, and people just aren't interested in it. And so we were talking about this as a team one night, and a couple that's a part of our house church had just moved into the neighborhood, and the house that they had purchased, they were picking up trash in their yard. And she commented that multiple people, as she was picking up trash, had stopped and asked her why she was picking up trash. She was picking trash up along the road. And so she just mentioned that, and it dawned on me really quickly. On our next prayer walk, we should pick up trash while we go out and just see what happens. And so this first ever one that we did had to have been the Lord telling us to do this indefinitely, because it was the most fruitful one we had ever had, was the very first one. So our first trash cleanup, we started with 9 people and we ended with 25 people, because neighbors were joining us to pick up trash from this neighborhood, had joined us. We had the opportunity to have over 30 spiritual conversations. We had 2 Discovery Bible studies happen in 2 hours on this first prayer walk. And one of those Discovery Bible studies is one that's been happening for 1 year. And we've seen 2nd generation Bible study happen through it. 3 or 4 people come to Christ. And so it was God's little nudge to us to keep picking up trash every week. And so we've been doing that now for 2 years. And so really practically, I would just love to share what this looks like for us. We have changed it a few times now, and this is what we have landed on as the kind of the most effective way as of right now, at least. So we meet at 5:45 in my home every Wednesday, and we listen to the Lord for about a half an hour. We'll pray very sparsely, ask the Lord for direction for specific streets. We've kind of identified 8 key parks that are situated around Pipsy areas, and we frequently prayer walk and pick up trash in the same neighborhoods. Because of this, in every neighborhood, we have at least 3 or 4 different houses who we're very familiar with. People often, when we're out picking up trash as well, this has been a really key part. They thank us, or they ask us what we're doing. They ask us why we're here picking up trash. And so often we don't even have to engage people. They're engaging us. Almost every time we go out, people offer us water or food. They're thankful because we're caring for the neighborhood that they're in. This happens every single week for almost 2 years, 1.5 years. We have been asked, why are you doing this? Every single week that happens. And so we have really defined Shema statements. That's been a big part of our team. Everyone has a Shema statement. So it'd be something of, God has commanded us to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. And we want to take ownership over the neighborhood that we live in and make it beautiful for the glory of God. And so that's a big part of it. And so, so we meet in my home at 5:45. We listen. We ask the Lord specifically where we should go. Often it's situated around one of these 8 parks. And then we go out in teams of 4 and then break into teams of 2 out of that. And we just simply pray over the neighborhood as we're picking up trash. We're taking a very humble posture of serving. It's definitely not a glorious thing. Through this, now we have 2 businesses that allow us to use their dumpsters to throw the trash away in. And we've had the opportunity to have discovery conversations with both of them. One of them was a Muslim woman who has now had a dream of Jesus and has given her life to Jesus, a restaurant owner who lets us throw our trash away in her dumpster. And we met her because we picked up trash, and then we went to a restaurant to buy food. And now it's led to this long relationship there. And so the listening aspect is really important. We've concluded as a team, we'll never pick up all the trash. Even sometimes we'll leave areas intentionally still trash there so we can come back. Like our goal is not to pick up all the trash. Our goal is to have access to these neighborhoods. And so we'll intentionally not pick up all the trash. Like we want to come back. We want to come back here again. Yeah, we have identified some key Shema statements as well, because this is reoccurring. It happens every Wednesday out of my home. We bring in new believers all the time. Believers who have either come to faith through Discovery Bible studies, or believers who we are training from legacy churches. We meet in my home, we listen to the Lord, we pray, and we go out. For someone who's maybe intimidated to have a conversation with a complete stranger, you can pick up trash and you can watch and you can learn and see how simple it really is. And so I would love to share a story of what just happened. This is about a week and a half ago that I think kind of perfectly sums up how we have seen this access ministry lead to seeing actual groups start. And so this is about a week and a half ago. We were in my home, we were praying at 5:45, and I felt the Lord say, Reed Street. And to be completely honest, I knew that was a street in my city, but I didn't know where it was. I had no idea where Reed Street was. And so I heard the Lord say, Reed Street at 7 o'clock. So we're like, I Google map, all right, Reed Street, it's about a 5-minute drive. We can park at this park, and then we could walk to Reed Street, be there at 7 o'clock. So we go to Reed Street at 7 o'clock, me and 3 people from our team, and we start walking down Reed Street, picking up trash. Also in prayer, I felt like the Lord was saying that there would be someone with a cane. So it was like Reed Street, there's going to be someone with a cane. I'm like, okay, Lord, please, because now we're going to this place at 7 o'clock. There's going to be someone with a cane. And so we're walking down Reed Street for about 10 or 15 minutes, still just picking up trash. There's no one with a cane. After about 15 minutes, we're walking down this long road. A man starts walking across the street holding his back with a box. He has this long box and he's using it as a cane to keep taking steps across the street. I'm like, okay, here's our guy. Here's our guy with the cane. And so we strike up the conversation with him. We ask him what's wrong with his back, and come to find out he had been in a really terrible car accident about 9 months before, in which his father had died in this car accident. He was in serious pain, was hospitalized for a long period of time. And so he was with a neighbor, and we were able to offer prayer for him. And it really led to a heartfelt, beautiful moment between my wife and I and him. As he was receiving prayer, he began to weep. We could just feel depression and anxiety lifting off of him. And that led to an opportunity for me to strike up a conversation with his neighbors. And so come to find out, they have really been caring for him. They cook meals for him and have been helping him in this time. And so they invited us back. I got to pray for the neighbor's wife as well. And she was crying. She was going through, her son has been battling addiction. And so shared stories of freedom from addiction that we have seen. And so now they've invited us back to come back and share more stories. And it was so funny because the wife, what she kept saying as we have our trash bags is, I just can't believe people would come here and do this, that people would come to our neighborhood and pick up trash. And now she's offered to come with us and pick up trash as well, which is a common theme. And so out of each discovery group that we have started in neighborhoods, because we meet them through picking up trash and prayer walking, that's often a logical next step for them, is they want to join us in picking up trash and prayer walking and claiming ownership over their neighborhoods. And so, yeah, over the past year and a half, this is the only access ministry that we have used, honestly, just because it's kept us so busy that we have so much access to homes and relationships with people and have seen groups started. And it's a really simple, accessible way to start groups as well. And so I think that's it.
Man, Man, that is awesome. I love so many things about that story. I want to point out, you talked about you went where he sent you. You listen before you go. We talked about that last week, about listening and going where he sends you. I love that about Reed Street and you doing that. There's just so many good keys in what you said, Jordon. But the thing I like most about it is just how simple it is. And there's not one of us here that probably couldn't pick up trash, or at least get somebody to go with us to pick up trash. And just the humility it takes to go out and pick up trash in a neighborhood. It's not the way that Christians often present themselves in a community. They usually come in like, I'm here to save you, not like I'm here to serve you and pick up your trash. So there's just so many beautiful things about that. Man, I love that story. So we gotta head off to our breakouts. Before we go, just to summarize here, that if you are on mission in your city, to look for persons of peace, you probably need some sort of access ministry. And as you've heard, there's different ways you can use something your legacy church is already doing. You can partner with a ministry that's serving your community, and you can just do their follow-up for them, or help them just do the spiritual side of what they wanted to do but never got around to doing. Or you can just create a very simple one like Jordon and them are doing. I love how it just came about through seeking God. And that ultimately is what you should be doing to find an access ministry, is do what God leads you to do. When we started in DMM, Chris would tell us every week, you just need to do what God tells you to do. It used to make me so angry because I'd be like, tell me what to do. And he'd say, Suzie, you need to listen to God and let him tell you what to do. And now I realize why he's been saying that, because just like with what Jordon shared here and even all the other stories, God is leading people. He's leading us, and he knows how to give us access to the people he wants us to reach. So just remind you, most persons of peace in movements around the world are found through some kind of access ministry. So if you haven't thought about access ministry, or you've given up on it, I just want you today, I'm going to encourage you to take a look again, pray about it, hold it up before the Lord. What would you have us to do about access ministry? Because I think it's a real key to all of us finding persons of peace, which, as we know, are keys in making disciples. So we're going to leave it right there, and we're going to go to our breakout groups.